Great to be here with you, Jim, founder of Thorlo, talking about how you have implemented a system of values, principles, and strategies and a structured process for a lot of the cultural work that's been happening here within Thorlo, and a structure that you have for that, what we call the pyramid. And just like to go through what the pyramid means, the different elements in it, and how that you've lived that at Thorlo.
Well, to start with, let me say that the very first graphic I had was a circle, 4 concentric circles. And then, as you remember, Jim, we worked about 3 years on the handbook, and at some point during the handbook, I came to the idea that the corporate world lives in this pyramidal structure, and that they understand that, and that to try to get them to understand circles would be more than I could take on. So I decided to put all this in the pyramid, and what it means is that the way I hold it is that when a stranger, if we were going to write a book, and this was on the front cover, corporate world would see that pyramid, they would come to look at it, and in the top slot it says more life. Yeah. I mean, that's dissonance, okay? Cognitive dissonance right there for a corporate guy. Well, he'd be intrigued to want to buy the book and read the book, see what's going on, or he'd thumb through it and see it. So what I did was, everybody knows that, and everybody in corporate world looks at the top slot, and they know this is where the authority to make all decisions live. Well, our common purpose is to ensure that everything we do and everything we invest in serves our loyal consumers' best foot health interest long term. Well, given that is the decision-making power, that's what has to be answered when we start to spend money. In other words, the last question, after we figure out what we want to do, why we want to do it, and how it's going to be done, how much it's going to cost, we have to say, does this serve our loyal consumers' best foot health interests long term?
So the way you'd say that for the broader audience is something around, you have to find out what your shared higher purpose is for serving, or for the largest community you serve.
Exactly. In other words, the common purpose to hold us all to that context in all of our work, whether it's janitorial, technical, administrative, finance, whatever it is, everybody relates to this common purpose, so that in effect we have got all the energy moving in the same direction, okay? At least paralleled, okay? Well, that's number one. The decision-making power is at the top of the pyramid, and that is this more life statement is what our consumers experience. By wearing our products, they actually enjoy more tennis, they enjoy playing more, they enjoy after the game because their feet are not hurting, et cetera, et cetera. So the second element of this is a structure with a process of how to live into that structure at the bottom, called integrated collaborative conversations, which I'll talk about in a minute. But
the 4 elements.
The second one is the 4 elements of integrity. Now, if an outside business wanted to use this, there's no outside business. This is not the 4 cornerstones of every business. We must have product or service integrity. We must have business systems integrity. We must have capital management integrity. And we must have cultural integrity. That is like 4 stanchions that are holding up this whole structure, and it's like a web. I cannot affect or affect any one of these without affecting the same in the rest of it. It's like a web. So that's integrated and integral in and of itself, and it's the foundation of service. If we're maintaining the integrity in all 4 of those elements, we're doing pretty good at serving the consumer with what we promised them.
So just as an example, if I start messing with capital management integrity, then I don't have the resources to reinvest into business systems or the product or the culture. If I start messing with the culture, then I don't have the ability, the people with the talent and the know-how, the years of experience to be able to deliver this product with the kind of profit margin that we can deliver. If I start messing with the business systems and we can't turn the product in on time to the consumer, then we're messing with the product integrity and our ability to charge this premium.
Right.
So any one of those, your point is, if you start messing with that in your culture, you are impacting the others.
Yeah. And so my point is that if somebody wanted to copy what we're doing, I think these are standard things. The more life thing would be in your language for your company, for your consumers, whoever you're serving, whatever that base is, and what your promise and what your guarantee to them are. So you're serving your consumers. The decisions you make are assured to serve your consumers' best interest long term. If you don't have these 4 integrities, you can't do that. And then below that is the mission and the vision and mission statement. And I would say that that they're so the same that if I were trying to do this as an outside company and I was going to do something, the mission statement would be all that I would articulate. The way we hold it is the vision is to realize sustainable value. That is sustainability. But how do we do that? By realizing sustainable relationships with our environment. That's me and you, that's me and my team, that's me and the whole company, that's me and all the 4 or 5 million consumers. And even beyond that to the people who don't yet know about it. So then what we come up with is a thing that we call brand stewardship. This evolved out of the leadership program. We wanted to name what a brand steward was and define a brand steward. And if you're in the handbook, you'd see the definition of it. What it really is brand steward is the acknowledgement every day that I serve that common purpose with my work. Whatever I do, when I clean the floors, I know that the reason I clean the floors is that if I don't clean the floors after a couple, 2 or 3 days, you can't even get in the knitting room to make the product. If you can't make the product, you can't serve the consumer's long-term best foot health interests. It's simple. So everybody is asking this company to think enough to come up with how does their work affect the consumer. And when people achieve that and they demonstrate in their daily interactions in this company and with outside people too, when they demonstrate that and they're in the leadership conversation, we call them brand stewards. In other words, the stewardship of the brand is not to protect the brand, but to make sure we live into the promise of the brand for our consumers, so that we always have integrity with this end result up here for the consumer. Because the truth is, if you're a loyal consumer, and all the marketing people today are all telling everybody that your loyal consumers are what you need to do the most for. You already got them. The cost of acquisition is so high today that if you already got a guy and you lose him of some dumb thing you do or make a mistake and you don't make it good, then you're going to lose him. And you may not ever get him back, but you'll have problems keeping people. So you're creating this relational world instead of a transactional world between us, me and you, me and my team, me and the whole company, me and all the consumers.
So with this stewardship, it's this living into the promise that we've made and the sense of obligation of living into that.
Yeah.
That's what you're calling brand stewardship.
And what's above it is what they have to live into or through it. You can't just have more life or brand or 4 elements of integrity or the mission statement of real life statement. You have to live those things. It's like, and branded people would hear that you have to really live a brand to have a brand. Now, there are people who don't do that and they have a brand, but it's because they spend $100 million a year in advertising. It's not a brand, it's an awareness. When they speak of brand awareness, I'm not talking about brand awareness, I'm talking about brand loyalty. I'm talking about, we have people that have been wearing our tennis sock for 30 years. They started paying $4.50 a pair, they now pay $14.99 for it, and they still think it's a bargain. Okay.
Beautiful. So what would be the strategy for how you realize this vision?
And that's how ICC showed up. I read a book one day, and a guy in the very preface of the book said something like, conversation is really the strategy for everything. And I kept reading, and he's making this point that whatever gets done that me and you are going to do together that we didn't have a conversation about. There is nothing we're going to do together that's going to come out well if we don't ever talk to one another. Not only don't we have a relationship, I don't know how to compliment your work, you can't compliment my work, because we don't know anything about one another because we don't talk.
Right.
Okay? I mean, in Psychology 101, I can tell you right now, if you're having a problem with your wife, save your first $75 to the psychologist or the counselor. Just remember this: you all do not communicate enough. And I'm not talking about talking by one another or to one another. I'm talking about with one another. I'm talking about communications is the interaction of a conversation where you're being who you really are and I'm being who I really am, and I am in the present moment with you, and we have a common problem or a common opportunity. That is relational building, because when we're successful together, the only word that comes to mind is magnificent, because it seems like if you ever done something that was hard to do and then you finally mastered it, and it takes very little energy anymore to do this thing, it's just natural because you've done it. So
I think the great thing about what I'm hearing you say, to sort of wrap this up, is it's not a conversation about the strategy, that became the strategy to living into all of these other pieces of brand stewardship, the vision, mission, the 4 elements of integrity, more life. It's through conversation and the supporting structure process of that enabled us to live into that on a more continuous basis.
Having these integrated collaborative conversations in the context of this pyramid. When somebody is not in this context, then their contribution is less or null. Null and void don't mean anything. But if everybody in that room is doing this, the intended consequences are that you're going to be more successful. The answer to your problem is going to emerge out of the conversation. Nobody came in here with the idea how to fix it, because we have to know how it's going to affect everybody in this room, their departments, so to speak. And that whole idea of living in that integration, meaning integral, meaning integrity, okay, that it's a learning curve that is really based on how strong we are together, not how weak we are because of our weakest link. We're really now experiencing how we're strong as our strongest link.
And you're actually living the fruits of that now.
And we're living the fruits of that, in the idea that we got this one group of people who are saving $2 million a year by the way they're collaborating. There's no new people in the group, no new knowledge in the group. It is the way they're collaborating.
And you're starting to see that one experience, but in other parts of the business too. So
yeah, well, we've actually got 3 other groups that are doing something, but they're not in a place where they can save $2 million. They don't have that kind of influence. As an example, in finance, I think the number was that we went from 8 people to 4 something. So they're actually doing better timely work, more factual work with less mistakes, and everybody's enjoying it more, and they're doing it it costs $250,000 in less salaries to get it done.
That's perfect. Well, thank you very much for sharing the pyramid.
Cool.
And how it could apply in other situations. That's great.
I hope it, anybody that's thinking about this, I hope it would give them some kind of insights into that. Some of this language is, I mean, you could make it better maybe, but I would suggest that it has to address those 4 or 5 elements. And the ICC is absolutely locked in. And the vision and the 4 integrities are locked in. These other things up here, how you set up your decision-making authority up here, and what that key question is going to be when you start to take on an opportunity or a problem about investing money is key. But it's a trip.
Thank you for doing it.